Good afternoon, Mr. Bender.
Good afternoon.
We'll let you take a seat and get comfortable, and you can start your remarks as you are ready to do so.
Thank you. I'm honored and humbled to appear before you as a candidate to fill the vacancy on the Iowa Court of Appeals. I want to take a moment and thank my wife, Diane, and my 3 daughters, Hannah, Caitlin, and Charlie. I know who is watching on this live stream. Without them, along with this professional journey, I would not be here, and they would not make it possible for me to appear today. When I was trying to think of what remarks I want to give, I decided, why am I sitting here? I'm sitting here because of my parents, especially my late father. My dad was an accomplished real estate appraiser in the state of Michigan and Indiana, and along with my mother, they had a successful small business for over 30 years. But the reason why I focused on my dad in my application and here today is that he was not only my father, but he was my first mentor and my best friend. He had many traits that I respected and admired, and many that I tried to emulate here in my life. He instilled into me that you must have a strong work ethic. You must have a passion for what you do. Whatever task you start, you must give your best at it. You must also treat everyone you come in contact with your life fairly. And most importantly, you have to have a willingness to make sacrifices when needed. Ultimately, he showed me that success in life had little to do with success. He showed me kindness is the great virtue. It's clear from these experiences from my dad, he initially planted the seeds of me wanting to become an attorney. The seeds that blossomed, it brought me to the state of Iowa here to attend law school. My continued desire to help people and my devotion to public service is what eventually led me to the public defender's office and then to the appellate defender's office. I would be remiss if I did not mention that it was a great fortune to clerk for Judge Mahan on the Iowa Court of Appeals. Judge Mahan taught me more than just law. He is devoted to his family, committed to the rule of law, and he signifies open-mindedness and fairness. He read the record in detail in every single case that came before him. He showed me that judges can disagree without being disagreeable, that everyone who comes to court deserves respect, and just every case has to be decided on an individual basis, that the legal case is not some number or name, but a life story. As I embarked on my legal career, I resolved to maintain that same perspective, and I believe I have embodied these qualities into my professional career as a trial and appellate attorney. I hope that after reviewing my application materials, you understand how my extensive legal background and diverse work experience as a trial and appellate attorney for almost the last 22 years in this state sets me apart from the other applicants and makes me a good fit for this position. As a lawyer working for several years in the trial court trenches, I saw judges and juries hard every day to decide fairly the cases I presented. I was not afraid to try cases if that was needed in order to achieve the proper resolution for my client. I earned the trust of my clients, opposing counsel, and judges, and as someone who can be fair and just. This practical experience has been valuable. I firmly believe in order to be a better appellate lawyer, you need to be a trial lawyer. All appellate judges benefit from such practical experience. Additionally, my appellate experience puts me in a unique position that adds a new perspective to this court. My appellate experience speaks for itself. I've handled hundreds of cases, argued numerous cases in front of the Iowa Supreme Court in this same courtroom where we're here today, or in the courtroom a floor down in the Iowa Court of Appeals. But most importantly, for the last 15 years as appellate defender, I review the record. I conduct the legal research. I write on a deadline, and I prepare for oral argument. In every case, I have to prepare a brief in an efficient, concise, and an expeditious manner so that I can effectively move on to the next case. Furthermore, throughout my time in the Appellate Defender's Office, I've had the opportunity to handle cases from a variety of counties. We do not limit our caseload to the larger counties to the exclusion of the smaller counties, which appeals are less frequent. This is important because I've had the opportunity to review cases from many different locations and judges from across the state. I was also fortunate to have been a trial attorney in several counties in northwest Iowa and central Iowa. Access to justice is widely different based on what part of the state that you live in. I think it's imperative for a court of appeals judge to have this experience in order to do their job. I think the benchmark of my career is best understood by the fact that I look at the facts of each case and apply the law. I review cases fairly. I judge each case on its own merits and treat everyone equally. I apply the law to each case without regard for my personal beliefs or feelings. I make tough decisions, even those decisions might be less popular. But most importantly, I do my utmost to ensure that justice is done in each and every case. I try to live up to these ideals every day because for me, every case of mine involves people. Each case that I'm assigned to is the most important one to that client that is involved. Who stands to gain or lose, often they're through their liberty or livelihood. My clients come to me at the worst time in their lives, and they trust me with their faith to achieve the result that's required by the law. I understand the dedication necessary to ensure that cases are managed efficiently so people get answers they need to move forward in their lives. Members of this commission, what I just outlined is no different than the duties that the appellate judge on the Iowa Court of Appeal must endure on a daily basis. I'm confident that I have the experience, skills, work ethic, and temperament to handle such a position from day one. I thank the members of the commission who have taken the time from your busy schedules to meet with me prior to this interview. It's been a privilege to discuss my candidacy for the position with you. I thought these conversations were very meaningful, and they were very candid conversations that mattered greatly to me. I hope you're able to see that the person that was in the personal interview is the same person that's sitting here today, who is the same person I'm in my everyday personal and professional life. And it would be the same person if I was seated as a Court of Appeals judge. I believe consistency in how you conduct yourself is important, for it tells a great deal about who you are as a person and how you'll perform as a judge. I know that commissioners could have further questions, so I would like to turn over the remaining of my time for questions. Thank you.
And we'll start those questions with Commissioner Graber.
Appreciate your application, and I appreciate how much you've highlighted your appellate experience that you have. What do you think us as commissioners should consider if appointing somebody who doesn't have as much appellate experience as you do? What would you expect as far as like a learning curve in order to get up to speed where you're at now?
Well, I think that most practitioners who are not, either in the Attorney General's office in the appellate division or in our office at the appellate defenders, they may do 2 to 5 cases a year on appeal, where we will handle significantly greater than that. We understand what this court is. It's a high-volume court. They have to turn out the cases. You have to be able to look at a case, and you have to be able to officially identify the issues in the case, and then you have to, at the same token, be able to concisely and efficiently and give a well-reasoned decision on why a decision needs to be made in the way you do. And I think that somebody who does not have that experience, who has not been through those long days of doing research, trying to find an issue, try to find a resolution to that issue, I think we'll have some learning curve here.
Commissioner Chase.
Thank you. I heard from several attorneys that have been on the opposite side of cases as you, that you're a very zealous advocate without being overly hostile. And so I think congratulations on that as a public defender. How does that translate if you are appointed to the Court of Appeals?
When people come before this court, they're coming to get a resolution to their life. They have an issue that's facing them, and they need to move on with their life. But the most important thing is you got to show respect to them. You got to show them that you actually care about their issue. Because ultimately, a decision will have to be made. And that could be a period of time where that decision might not be in their favor. But how you treat them, whether it's how you treat them here in the courtroom, in the oral arguments, or how you treat them in the opinion, goes a lot to how they view our judicial system. And I think if you provide a well-reasoned decision, and you make sure that they can understand why you reached that decision, even if they're not successful, it goes a long way to show that you can show respect to them, you can show respect to their issue, but unfortunately the rule of law does not provide them relief.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pearson?
Thank you. Thank you for your application and being with us today, and the comments you shared about the impact your father has had on you. But when we talked, you also commented at 2 other times that were kind of defining moments, I'll call them. I think that's what you defined them as, was one when you were in law school and the other when you were a law clerk, that really helped you to kind of shape or think where you wanted to take your career in the field of law. Would you share those with us?
Yes. First of all, I came to Drake Law School to study agricultural law. My dad was agribusiness. That's what he was. And I thought I would follow in his footsteps as an ag attorney. After my first year, I interned at the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Des Moines. That was an eye-opener. It showed me I want to be a trial attorney. I didn't want to sit behind the desk and do agricultural law anymore. I wanted to actually be in the courtroom. I loved that experience. That was an eye-opener and defined how I progressed through my rest of my legal education. And then it's Judge Mahan. I stated in my remarks, I had the great fortune to clerk for Judge Mahan. He's a great guy. He showed me a lot on how to be an effective attorney. He provided guidance to me. He was my mentor when I was just a newbie attorney who was trying to get my feet wet in the courtroom. Every time I had to have a question answered, he would answer those for me. But he also showed me how to be an effective attorney. He said that you have to look at cases from both perspectives. You have to look at the cases from the idea that we don't know what the answer is. You should not have a prejudgment about it. Go and find the answer. But he also showed me how to respect the court too. He's told me, you better be very collegial to the court personnel, to the court reporter, to the clerk of court's office, and to opposing counsel. It will do you well in your life if you do that. And I've learned that over these last 22 years. If it wasn't for that advice, I don't know if I would be sitting here today. Because it shows that collegiality, even as a zealous advocate, can get you far in life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Marquardt?
In your application, you highlight several skills that you believe are important and that you have. One of them is the ability to be decisive. Can you talk to the commission more about how you feel you've got this ability to be decisive and, frankly, impartial, and how you use that when you're looking over the appeals that you get?
When I get an appeal, I have a client. And the client, you have to realize, when they come to me, they're already convicted. So they have a long list of complaints. They'll start with how their attorney treated them, how the court personnel treated them, how the judge looked at them wrong. I mean, I hear everything impossible. And they want that to be an issue. They want every possible thing that they think is wrong to be an issue. That can't be the case. Especially now with the legislature changing how we can raise certain things on appeal, it even limits our ability to raise certain issues. But you have to realize too, when you do an appeal, you cannot have 7, 8 issues in a brief. Unless it really calls for it. On a murder case, it may call for it if it's a long, several-week trial. But on most cases, you have to make that decision how you're going to rank what issues to include in a brief. The client might not like what you choose, but that's where you have to be able to counsel your client, be able to give him reasons why you're choosing the decisions that you're making. And ultimately, the decisions rest with me. I have to live with that case because if I make a mistake, I'm ineffective. I took an oath that I am supposed to adhere to ethical standards. I must be able to decide what has a merit, what doesn't have merit. And that's the tough decisions I make. Sometimes I want to include that 5th issue, but I choose not to because I think it might diminish our other issues. Client might not be happy, but after I talk to them and discuss with them, they understand where I'm coming from.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Henderson,
No questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Parrish.
Mr. Bender, I want to thank you for your hard work on behalf of the indigent and the disenfranchised over the years and your zealous advocacy for them. I want to ask you a question on the other side of the perspective. You're going to have civil lawyers and clients with money judgments. Do you think that you have the skill set, and if you do, to switch over and make difficult decisions on those type of cases and not make them any less important? And if you have that skill set, would you share with the commission what are those skill sets and how would you apply them on the Court of Appeals?
Every day in my life, I follow the rule of law. Whatever the law dictates, that's what I have to do. When you're a criminal defense attorney, especially in appellate work, you have the law against you, but you still must follow where that leads. And whether it's a criminal case, a juvenile case, a family law case, or a civil case, the rule of law will dictate the decision on the Court of Appeals. I have done this for 22 years to follow the rule of law. It's not my personal beliefs that come in on whether or not I think a judgment in a civil case is appropriate or not. That has no place in that basis. I will look at the law, I will do the legal research on that issue, and then I will fairly apply that law equally to both parties. And you have to remember, the Iowa Court of Appeals is a high-valuing court. I think you probably have heard that 1,100 opinions are done each year. Since January 1st, they've issued 639 opinions by the appellate courts. 70 were from the Supreme Court, 568 from the Court of Appeals. 27% are juvenile, 45% are criminal or quasi-criminal. I include PCR and criminal because really PCR are criminal cases. 7% are family and 21% are civil. My life, I have devoted as a trial attorney, as appellate attorney, I've done almost 70-some% of these cases on a daily basis, either when I was a trial attorney or as an associate attorney or now as an appellate defender. And I believe that we have well-rounded legal research and writing skills. I have the legal wherewithal to understand what the issue is, and I'll apply the law, because that's, as a Court of Appeals judge, is what you must do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hoig,
No questions.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hoytink,
No questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schnur.
Talk about how you would review jury verdicts, given your experience as a trial lawyer, and you've touched a little bit on criminal, but civil jury verdicts too.
Well, the preference and the deference here on appellate courts is you're supposed to defer to what their credibility findings are. If they reach a certain verdict, the idea is that they found certain evidence to be more credible than other evidence. But in my daily life, when I review a lot of jury cases. Of course, it's in the criminal sense, but it's the same idea where it will apply whether it's in a civil sense or in a criminal sense. You have to look at what the evidence was presented. You have to see if what the decision they reach, there's substantial evidence in the record to support it. And you are not to quickly overturn a jury verdict, but you should not be afraid to overturn a jury verdict either, because that does a disservice to the other side too. If you're scared to overturn a jury verdict because you just don't want to do that on appeal. That's not what our law provides. Our law provides the ability to overturn that verdict if there's certain evidence that was not met and a certain standard was not met. And if you apply that standard, I think that, that's what I would do in those cases, especially in the civil realm, and that's how I would perform as an appellate judge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Roberts,
No questions.
Thank you.
Commissioner Simmelroth.
What did you see when you worked for Judge Mahan that helped him deal with this incredible caseload that you have on the Court of Appeals?
You got to be efficient, organized, and you can't think about the decision you make. Because that's one thing I do. I don't think about, once I make a decision, it's behind me. I don't worry about it. It does not linger with me. Because you can't let decisions linger because it affects then your flow of cases that you're doing. And that's the one thing. If I'm right or wrong, it's the decision that was made, I go forward. And he showed me that, because you got to make a decision on that case, prepare that opinion, conference that opinion, and then the opinion gets published. And that's what I've been doing every day for the last 22 years of my life. I've been in that decisive decision making. Don't let things linger. move on. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll learn from it, but if I'm right, then we get the case done and we move up to the next case.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our time has run out. So
Thank you.
thank you
I
so much
appreciate
for
it.
your application, and we wish you the best.
Thank you. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.